Welcome to the Real Estate Show. From buying to selling and everything in between. Rochester's home for everything real estate. And now, your hosts from the Anthony Butera team of Keller Williams Realty, Greater Rochester. It's Anthony Butera and Jason Mancuso.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 104 of the Real Estate Show. Anthony and Jason here. We're right in the middle of the holidays.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. Everything's normal. You know, we're all doing good.
Yeah.
Different, right?
Yeah, a little bit different. I was able to enjoy Thanksgiving with all of my loved one.
Yeah.
And Christmas is probably looking the same. My mom was getting depressed because my brother's in Carolina, and I don't even think they're going to be coming home, which typically they would spend a couple of weeks here. And then I reassured my mom that I will be here. I'm not going anywhere. And then she took a Xanax and went to bed.
Right.
My mom bought like $800 worth of COVID tests
Oh, yeah?
for Christmas because she's like she wants to make us all test up and then so we can see each other.
She paid top dollar. She paid top dollar for the rapid test, huh?
Yeah.
Jason just did the scratch and test in his house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They all
all
work.
pass.
They're all fine.
A fail is a pass in our house. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like, no Santa at the ball this year, right? I assume. That was the first time I thought about that.
I mean, that's fine.
Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade is depressing.
Yeah, that was terrible. I don't know.
Hey, but the dog show was great after it.
I forgot about that.
You know what I was thinking? Yeah, the dog show.
Yeah.
The
Usually has a
Westminster Dog
roaring
Show.
crowd.
Yeah.
I think it's like the worst animal abuse I could see. Like, I'd rather, like, that's, I don't know. I can't say
What, the dog show?
But
Those dogs are
Yeah.
pampered, man. They got,
dude, you know what they do to these dogs to get them to act like that?
Yeah, they're all anorexic.
Yeah.
They
Sure.
the judges have to like
And-
cup their private parts and like touch butthole and stuff.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, there's body dysmorphia and shaming across. It's not good, Jason.
I think we've
not
reached a
good.
new low. New low for the show. You're welcome.
That was the low.
for the show.
That was it.
Yeah,
Sure.
true.
I did have a buddy of mine ask me this past week. He didn't ask me. He thought that Mark was actually on our team
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he sells real estate.
I got a
Yeah,
face for real
happened,
estate.
Yeah.
All right, so what I got a list here of like common home buying and real estate myths, and let's do a show where we kind of like go through. We'll debunk some of these, you know, or I don't know, maybe some of these
Sure.
myths end up being kind of true. Who knows, you know?
Fire away.
Because I mean, this crap has to come from somewhere, right? You know, just
Oh, yeah,
doesn't come
I mean-
from nowhere.
Yeah.
People don't know what they don't know.
All right, the first one is about home inspections. Basically, that when it comes to home inspections, there's either you either pass it or you fail a home inspection.
That's actually
that's a
really
good one.
common. First house I ever bought, I wasn't in the business. I was still doing construction, and I remember like I was super excited. Number one, just to get a house, right? And it needed work. It was a fixer upper, and that's when I had the energy and spirit to actually do the work myself. And I remember when I bought it, I had the home inspection, and me and my father went like through the list and the report, and he was under the assumption that everything that showed up on the report had to be done by the sellers because it failed, and here's what they need to do in order to move forward. And it would have cost the sellers $50,000 at least at that time. And they did nothing at all. They basically said, not a problem. Yeah, there's another interested buyer. And of course, I was like terrified of losing it. So I just said, okay, no problem. And I did all the work myself, and I fixed it up and made a lot of money when I sold it. But that is a common misunderstanding.
Yeah, very common, especially like before. I think I don't want to say the secret or the cat's out of the bag, but I think it's these home inspections, just as a concept in general, is becoming the education around it is more and more prevalent in this market that we've been in the last few years, just with this new notion of a lot of people waiving the inspection. Like, where the hell did that come from? And if you talk to your parents or whatever, or anybody who bought a home 10 years ago, it's like, you got to be out of your mind. Yeah. So, I mean, it is still common, though. It's like, well, the home inspection didn't pass. It's pass-fail in terms of, do you want to buy the house or not? And if there's too much work going on, or too much that you're afraid of, or just deficiencies that are pointed out in the inspection report or process, then you're protected through that contingency, to be able to walk away at that point. Yeah. You can certainly try to negotiate or renegotiate the deal at that point based on the results, but again, seller can tell you, take a hike, we got somebody else. Same thing happened in the house that I last bought. Nothing really terrified me to want to walk away from the house, but tried to get cute, and I did the hey, why don't you throw in the riding lawnmower and we'll call it even. And I think they said it may have been $500, which is fine. It may have been like, we'll give you $50 and you can take it on to the next.
I remember you getting hung up on that riding lawnmower.
I really wanted the riding lawnmower. But so, kind of interesting story. At that point, they're like, look, we've got a backup offer. We've got other people interested. You better shit or get off the pot, was the message. And that's, a similar message that we give as well. And, at that point, like, I didn't even take the credit, because I didn't want to risk losing the house and have any back and forth to where there's like, okay, here's my proposal, give me $500 or whatever the number was that they're saying. I just said, I'm removing my contingency. This house is mine. Change it to pending, no more games. So, it was kind of the old college try on my end, but I wanted the house, and there was stuff wrong with it, and
And how many years you been there, Jay?
5.
Yeah, and I remember when you were going through the process of buying it, you felt that you overpaid, right?
Yeah.
And without saying what you paid for it, I mean, how much more could you probably sell it for today than what you bought it for?
Oh God, probably $50,000 in the same condition it was in back then. So
are you going to sell your lawnmower with it?
Ball. So funny story. I mean, not funny, but I ended up getting a riding lawnmower, and like, come to find out, the yard was big enough where I wanted one, but I didn't have any experience before. So all these like twists and turns and flower beds and just it was a total pain in the ass to do with the riding lawnmower. So I ended up selling that, a year later, because it's like, get out here with the pollution. I
love hearing about his house frustrations.
But now, shout out to my lovely wife. She mows lawn.
Yeah, I got to get Lily out there.
Yeah, you got to get yourself one of them.
And it's hot. Like, I stare at her when I'm home when she's doing it out the front window. It makes her feel uncomfortable.
Oh my God! She
doesn't listen to this, so we're good. Mom, don't tell her I talked about this.
Yes.
All right, I got another myth. Got another myth here. Getting pre-approved is done after finding your perfect home.
Yeah, still common to hear. We get we vet a lot of phone calls from consumers that want to see a house, and when we ask them if they've been pre-qualified, you do get a lot of pushback that sounds something like, well, we don't even know if we like the house. Why would we go and get pre-qualified when we don't even know if you like the house? Well, kind of some pushback is, okay, well, my sellers have to prepare the home for you. They got to remove their kids, the pets, and go out of their way. They would probably like to know that if they're going to go through all of that, that you could actually buy the house if you do like it. right? So you do need to get pre-qualified beforehand. And I can tell you that any real estate agent that doesn't ask you if you've been pre-qualified or doesn't care if you've been pre-qualified isn't doing any business. So they don't feel like it's a waste of anybody's time because they've got nothing but time. If you want a high quality agent that's going to advocate for you and fight for you, they're going to be a really seasoned agent that has their ducks in a row. Don't get mad at them because you don't.
Now, I'll shift gears here and kind of tailor what I'm about to say towards agents. And you can accomplish what you want to accomplish in terms of making sure that you know that the buyer, the person that you are talking to, is pre-qualified by just like, and to the consumer as well. Like, we're just here to help. Like, we want to, the way that we kind of approach is we want to find out like where you're comfortable with financially so that we know that, what we're showing you or homes that we're sending you fit that comfort level on the financial side of it, fit the budget that you want. A lot of people make the mistake, like what we walk people through is, hey, where do you want to be per month as an expense for owning a home? What do you have to go towards a down payment in terms of cash? I'm not asking you what your life savings is, but just what do you have set aside to do this? Do that first. Determine that first. Like, if you've taken no steps to the process, that's the first step to take, is kind of lay out the life budget. And then we go to the bank or talk with a lender to get pre-qualified. Because if you just go and call up a lender and say, hey, I want to get pre-qualified, they're going to run your financial profile, so to speak. And you may have a great profile, great job, great income, great credit. They may approve you for a $400,000 house when you break down the numbers, you really only want to spend $200,000. You can go down a rabbit hole of looking at all these, higher end $300,000-$400,000 homes that you're nowhere near comfortable with, but qualified for financially.
It's a great point. It's a great point, Jason, because no one, and it's like across the board, no one has ever called us and said, we're looking to purchase a home and here's what we feel comfortable with spending a month. What they'll do is they say, we're looking for a home and we're looking between $175,000 and $200,000. And they have no idea what that even means from a monthly budget standpoint, right? Because we'll get people that want to buy for $250,000 and you say, okay, well, what's your comfort zone every month for your mortgage, taxes, and homeowners insurance? And you hear a lot of, well, $1,200, $1,250. And it's like, okay, that's fine. You should stay within that budget. And we're probably going to be looking around $150,000 to $160,000 with today's interest rate.
Unless you have a big down payment. And it's just stuff that we want to dive into. And it's what becomes uncomfortable for the consumer and agents as well, if they're not prepared for it, is just, you're having this initial phone call. And again, like Anthony said, there's a lot of agents out there that are just have the time and are willing to meet you at the drop of a hat to meet you at a house and you've never met. You don't know if they're a serial killer or not, but they're going to take the opportunity to show you a house and try to lock you in as a client. We take the approach of, hey, we're happy to help. Give us 2.5 minutes to just ask a couple questions, find out where you're at, and we can go from there. If you're, not ready to buy a house like today and just starting out, that's totally fine. It's not to say that, hey, you got to go to a bank and get pre-qualified before we're even willing to talk to you. It's just kind of meet us halfway to at least have this conversation. You'll find out that we're just having the conversation so we know how to best help you and move forward from there. And that's, again, to the message to the agents, don't try to accomplish that by just saying, are you pre-qualified? It's a turnoff, right? I mean, first impression wise, like, I wouldn't want to deal with that if I'm a consumer either. If you got somebody who's asking questions, showing that they actually care, different story.
Tone is super important and how you go about it, right? Like, I hear agents on the phone and they will say, I'll hear a lot of, well, if you're not pre-qualified, then we can't do it. Like, change the conversation a little bit. because there's a big difference. If your tone is right, it's going to feel like you're a big difference on how that's received.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like, to the consumer, just, find that agent that is willing to help and not just, opening a door for you, hoping that they can build a relationship and lock you in after that. So
no doubt.
All right, so we're going through home buying and real estate myths, and kind of doing like a MythBuster episode here. So the myth is that it's better to price your home high because you can always reduce the price. So you want to start off high and then reduce the price when you're selling it.
So it's it's very common. Again, these are actually really good.
Yeah.
It's very common, and it's never right to do that, but it's even less right, if that makes sense, in the market that we're in. In a buyer's market, days on the market are like forever and a day anyway, meaning like when I got in the business 9 years ago, average days in the market was probably like 64 days, right? So even if you did hit the market too high, and if you did come down every 30 days, a reasonable amount, I'd say that like I could understand the logic more at that point. But the market that we're in right now, the seasoned consumers that are familiar with this market, they don't like your house for no other reason than it's been on the market for 3 weeks. They assume that there's something wrong with it above and beyond the price. So you turn people off with days on the market. In your pursuit for top dollar, you're leaving so much more on the table. I have this conversation multiple times a week with multiple sellers, and it's not easy at first. Not all of them digest it easily, but the only way I'm going to get you top dollar is by pricing it at bottom dollar, or at least showing value compared to other homes on the market or homes that recently sold,
or even just fair value.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair
because
to the market.
Yeah, fair to the market, because there's conceptually speaking, the way the pricing has increased in the last few years, that if you got somebody who's been in a coma the last 5 years, similar to what we just talked about, was in a coma the last 5 years and woke up today and look at the housing pricing, being familiar with the area, before coma. This example's getting crazy, but and woke up today, they'd be like, "What, are you kidding me? For that house? That's no way," right? So it's just got to be fair to today's pricing standards. And if you try to price it to where the list price is now meeting these over asking price numbers, you run the risk of the marketplace just saying, "Man, that's just crazy because I'm trained that it's going to go over that price, and now we're way out of the stratosphere of what's reasonable." And it's just this concept kind of comes from a lot of like, I don't know, I guess just old school in nature, where it's like, let's negotiate. You always, you offer 10% less and start there and wind up in the middle or see where the seller's at, type of thing. The problem with that logic in this market is that, there's just the example of one house on the market and you got 10, 20, 30 buyers that are chasing after it. The seller doesn't have to worry about your negotiating strategy, because frankly, there's not a whole lot of negotiating that goes around. It's just, an auction type concept going on. So when you don't hit that number, that's, fair, you run a lot of risk of now you're on a downward slope as a seller and a sliding scale to where you end up shooting yourself in the foot a lot of times.
Yep. It's interesting. This happened to me last year. It was a high-priced home, and we agreed on a price. And they were referred to me by close friends, and I consider them friends. And we hit the market. I should have been tougher on them with a list price, but I had no fear of ever losing the listing. And we went on the market for closer to where they wanted to price it compared to myself. We got an offer right away. This home was listed for $500,000, and we got an offer for $450,000 that first week. And they were like offended by it. And this other party refused to come up. Well, it sat on the market. It was a luxury home on the west side, not easy on the west side when you get $500,000 price range. And it sat and sat and sat. And like this listing, we worked our asses off on. There was a lot that went into it that we had to prepare for every time it had to be showed. And we ended up losing the listing. And it sold 6 months of carrying costs later. It sold for $30,000 less than the offer that they rejected when we first hit the market.
Plus carrying costs in that price
Carrying
range
costs the
are
whole
another $20,000 probably.
Oh yeah, all day.
So,
They were already,
yeah.
they were moved out.
I think the biggest concept from what we're talking about here is that the market speaks very quickly. If you don't react to it right away, yeah, you're on this, in this example, we're talking about a net loss to the seller of potentially $50,000 compared to what they could have done if they, made the right moves from the start, unfortunately. Yep. So, and yeah, I don't care who you are, $50,000 is a pretty big number. But
right.
again, on the smaller scale of it, we can be talking about $5,000, $10,000 increments that'll catch up to you in the matter of a week. So we're not doing it for our benefit. The benefit for us is to get it to the closing table. And, we're trying to do that. we're advising you to your financial benefit first and foremost. So.
All right. So I got another myth here, home buying myth. Your down payment is 20% of the cost.
Yeah. Again, old school type of thing where, back in the day, honestly, I don't even know at what point it turned or if
it was honestly, it was mid 80s, Jason, when, federal housing
it was
authorities,
just like back in the day, it was just, you had to have 20%, right?
It was the only way.
Yeah. So, and again, especially a market like Rochester, homes were a lot cheaper, right? Your $150,000, $200,000 home in the suburbs now, way back in the day, it was built for 20, 30, 40,000, sold in the 70s for 50,000 type of thing. Yeah. So 20% of that, not a ton of money, but with inflation, with everything else, it adds up. But yeah, it was just back in the day, that's what you had to have. And the myth carries on a little bit. I think at this point, there's enough, especially with first time home buyers, there's enough education around, enough awareness around, especially of all these programs out there that can help with down payment assistance or grants or what have you, to where people are aware of the lower down payment options. With conventional loan products, you can get as low as 3% down payment. With FHA, as low as 3.5%. Typical conventional loan is a 5% down payment minimum. So there's a lot of lending options out there that I think have kind of adapted to the times, over the last 20, 30 years or so. And yeah, it's a great time to be a buyer, as we've talked about this before with the rates being low, but with that aspect too, you don't have to have, $100,000 to be able to purchase the dream home that you want. You can do it with minimal cash out of pocket.
And a ton of consideration that was given when those down payment, standards changed was like up until the mid 80s, it was a small percentage of people that actually went to college and accumulated college debt, right? You get people that are out of college, that college debt, that's a huge burden for them. And like freed up cash just isn't there. You pay, especially where we're at today, you pay over $100,000 all day in college student loans, and you're getting out of school and, you're getting a job for $12, $13 an hour. It's tough to pay those off.
Right.
All right, I got
Unless
one
you're
more.
getting the radio, of course.
Very lucrative, You'll be doing Zoom podcasts all day. All right, I think we have like 8 minutes left, but I got one more myth. We can go through this one pretty quick. We got
Fire through it.
don't settle for anything less than your dream home. I like the evil laugh.
Well, I just like we all settle, right? I mean, my girlfriend settled extremely. Jason's wife really settled. You heard
I
him.
won, though. I won.
No doubt.
She's mowing the lawn.
He's got a beautiful wife that mows the freaking lawn.
Yeah. Winning.
So, the analogy's thrown out there all the time, and we'll even hear it from agents. Like, listen, guys, I'm going to find you that dream home. The dream home doesn't really exist. I mean, unless you're drawing it and you're building it to exactly what you envision, I still don't think it exists, right? You're going to have to settle. Just be careful on what you settle for, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's just like dating, right? It could have a really nice exterior and they're crazy, or they smell like tilapia, right? Like,
You talk about houses, right?
Yeah,
the houses, yes.
So
yeah, I tell people, like, and it's part of the process because you don't just see one home and end up buying it. 9.9 times out of 10 anyway. So I tell people, like, you get into a mode of searching for a home. You know what the market's like. So there's a bit of research to the process, right? And education to where the their toes in, then gets their feet wet, and then jumps into it, right? And by that time, they kind of know what's out there. They know what the expectations are, especially for price range. Where this conversation doesn't apply is, like, if you have an endless budget, then yeah, go out and build whatever the hell you want to, and it's your dream home, and you're set. I tell people, you're going to know when, the home that you want to buy. Like, you shouldn't have any doubts about it, really. And, that process to get to that point may take time, just as far as understanding, like, hey, here's what our budget is going to leave us with, and deciding if you're happy with that. But ultimately, once you're dialed in and, like, focused and know, like, okay, here's what our $200,000 price point is going to, most likely leave us with, you're going to know the house, more or less, before you even get there. And that's what you got to shoot for. It's probably not going to be a dream home unless you're just like, the super practical, conservative type of dreamer, I guess. But yeah, I just think it's one of these, like, you should have a lot of good feelings about it, as you're making an offer. Otherwise, like, don't make the offer. If you're wishy-washy on something, like, it's probably not, like, what happens if you win that offer? So,
you should have non-negotiables. You may just have to reevaluate what those non-negotiables are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So,
and it ends up being like, if you are looking for the dream home and you don't have the budget to match it, I hate to say it, but you end up looking and you probably don't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Until you kind of, have the reality check. So.
All right, guys. Well, you can check out and subscribe to the podcast at AndyButerraTeam.com. Just got the real estate tab there. We'll see you next time.
Awesome.
Guys,
Thanks,
thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening to The Real Estate Show. Find us on Facebook, iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. If you're looking to sell or buy, talk to the Anthony Butera team of Keller Williams Realty, Greater Rochester. Visit AnthonyButerraTeam.com.